Hello, and welcome to this presentation on Pedagogy Resources that's brought to you by the Faculty Advocacy Committee. We know that everyone has a little trepidation about going into this fall where our classrooms may look a lot different and we may end up online or we may end up doing a hybrid of some sort. So we wanted to create a space where everyone can share ideas and ask questions and pick the brains of the most creative people that we know, which are our colleagues. That Canvas group is called Pedagogy Resources, and if you're not already added to it from a couple of years ago when we were doing pedagogy discussions, please just let me know at hhoover@milligan.edu, and I will add you as soon as I can. This PowerPoint presentation and the collaborative Google Doc that was designed by Ian Lundholm will also be available there. So, I wanted to talk about 4 specific categories. The first is lecture. We all have lecture components of our classes, but studies show that, especially online, student engagement drops after just 6 minutes. So this tool that I'm using right now is called Screencast-O-Matic, and it actually limits your presentations to 15 minutes. That has actually been very helpful to me as I've redesigned some of my courses for the fall. And mini lectures are very helpful as well. So think about your big lecture format, and if it can be broken into smaller chunks, that might be very helpful for your students and for you. The other thing that I'm considering doing that has gained some traction in some pedagogy circles is flipping the classroom. And I will probably send my lectures via some sort of format, whether it is a video or this kind of lecture link, and have them watch it before they come to class. And then I might incorporate a quiz from Canvas, for instance, where that's just an open-ended quiz where they check in based on that lecture, and then we can come together either in a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting, and I will already have their responses to that lecture right in front of me. And you can definitely use tech tools like Zoom and YouTube and all those different kinds of things, and some of those resources are available for you in Pedagogy Resources under the discussion tab of lecture. Another thing that a lot of us are a little bit worried about is exams, because we don't want to handle all that paper. It's very difficult to test people, especially in large classes. So there are some interesting things out there about online exams. Ian Lundholm has some ideas about how to work with specifically online exams, and I know the humanities folks are working very diligently on how to test a large group of students. So if you're thinking about online exams, you may have to think differently about how that exam works for you. Another good idea is to have students write exam questions and use group discussion to evaluate their questions and answer using evidence from that unit. Another idea that gains a lot of traction is oral exams via Zoom or live chat. So maybe just rethinking how we test and what we test might be a very important approach for this semester. Classroom discussion is a huge part of my classes, and I know so many of our classes. Discussion boards are helpful, but they're not always, they're a little clunky sometimes. So one of the things that you can do is break students into small groups in the discussion boards. So there's only 3 or 4 people in each group in the discussion board. If you don't know how to do that, let me know or talk to Kelly Griffith, and it's very easy to split your classes into discussion boards. The other thing that's very helpful is if you know you want to do a thing and you know that Canvas can do it, a simple Google search will probably give you exactly what you need to figure out how to do it. The other thing that's really interesting is an idea where you use old school 9x12 whiteboards. And so for classroom discussions, students can write individually on their own whiteboards with their own markers, and that would be helpful for group work as well. It's something I'm asking my students to bring as part of their classroom supplies, just for my syllabus, and I'm asking them to bring a camp chair for outdoor work. One thing that I've heard a couple of our colleagues do is getting a mini microphone that will fit inside your mask, so like an over-the-ear Britney Spears kind of microphone, and a portable amp, so that students can understand what you're saying if you're lecturing in person and there's a fan or there's obviously the mask and all of those things. And then group work is something that we do a lot in composition, and I know that a lot of other disciplines use group work as well. But first, I think we have to ask why we assign group work and the challenges students will face if group work does not take place synchronously. So thinking about how we can facilitate good camaraderie and build a cohort within our class and trust and discussion, but also considering the obstacles that students might face. Outdoor spaces, I've met with some of my colleagues on campus, and there are some good outdoor spaces. I know that the administration is offering us a few tents and a few outdoor spaces, but if we can get students spaced apart, group work may actually really work well, and especially if you have something like those little individual whiteboards. Google Hangouts and Jamboards. A Jamboard is just a whiteboard, and some people find it very helpful, but I don't use an iPad and I don't have a stylus, so it's very difficult for me to use a virtual whiteboard. But some people do, and it may be very helpful to you if that's part of your technology. Some useful reminders. Remember that this semester is about pedagogy, not the platform. So you do not have to master all sorts of new tools. And you don't really have to, use all sorts of crazy technological things. You just need to facilitate that good pedagogy, and you know how that works, and you know what works best for you. Consistency counts. So if you're going to use something like Zoom, make sure that you distribute widely your expectations about how that works. Put that in your syllabus. Talk about it in a small video that you post on Canvas, and so that your students have a clear idea of what you're going to do. Remember that less is more. The more tools, we think our students are super tech savvy. They are not. We don't know how they're going to access this material, and so less is more, and the more consistent we can make it, the better. And speaking of accessibility, there are functions that allow you to use closed captioning, and that's helpful. But also remember that accessibility to particular software matters too. I used PowerPoint slides with audio in them in the spring, and they were great, except for approximately 30% of my students couldn't access those PowerPoint slides with the audio. So this tool that I'm using right now, the screencast, is just a link that they will play on YouTube, and they can all do that. So I know that that will work for them. Get to know your Zoom features, such as raise hand or chat or the whiteboard feature. And my particular favorite is polling, because you can kind of check the temperature and involve students right there in the middle of your discussion. There's a lot more great ideas. Harvard put out a really great best practices blog, and some of these ideas have come from there, and some have just they're just good ideas that exist in the world, and they've curated them. So feel free to check that out. It will be very helpful to you. And some useful tools. I love Padlet. I use Padlet a lot, and you can link it straight into Canvas. It's essentially a virtual bulletin board, and I've used that in lots of ways. If anybody wants to see how I do that, you're welcome to contact me. Screencast-O-Matic, which is here, it's free. And there's a thread on Canvas about Canvas ideas. There's all sorts of really cool things that Canvas does that I don't really have time to learn about, but this is a curated list of just some cool things that Canvas does. This last one is Hypothesis, and it's a web annotation tool, and all you have to do is install a browser extension. It's very simple. Some of the other ones require access to your Google Drive, which makes me very, very nervous. So be sure you read your terms and conditions before you sign up for anything that's free. And again, just one more plug to check out our Canvas group. Want to join? Please email me, and remember that the discussion is ongoing, and we are excited to involve as many people as would like to be involved. So we thank you, and we appreciate your friendship and collegiality, and we look forward to this fall working together.